So the Washington football team make a move that I think many will be surprised by, going after a running back here, and it's not the running back many expected. Brian Robinson going here, who I am actually a lot higher on than most. I like Brian Robinson. I think he's a good player and will help the Washington football team a little bit earlier than I would have liked, but it's not massively earlier than I would have liked. I didn't really see him as a top 100 guy, maybe a top 150 guy though, so bit of a reach, but I think I'll be warmer on this pick than the average consensus will be, because I think he's a really good player. Let's talk about why I like him, and then we'll maybe talk about the negatives just of, again, positional value sort of at the end of this video. So let's start off with a play like this. So what you're going to see on this play is it's going to be really, the main thing to watch is going to be how the defensive tackle and defensive end towards the top of the screen, so to the offense's left, how they're going to get blocked right here, as that's where Robinson is going to try to get through. That's the gap he wants to run through. As you see, there is going to be a pretty good gap, and it's going to come down to really the linebacker and the halfback. That's oftentimes how these plays work, right? Is a lot of times in running plays, it comes down to, okay, running back, linebacker, one-on-one, you can't block everybody. Who's going to be able to win? I think it's worth mentioning this is very hyped up prospect, Nakobe Dean, also in this draft class, who is good. So this is a big time matchup, and this is something that it'd be cool to see Brian Robinson be able to at least hold his own on. And as you see, they're both going to run through that gap, and that's a hard collision. Both guys, I think, got the worst of that one somehow, because that was a big time collision. But it kind of just goes to show, like, hey, like Robinson had definitely held his own on that one, I felt like. And maybe you could even argue won the rep on that play. So he's definitely someone who he can take a hit and he can give a hit as well, which is good to see. There's also a play like this where, pardon the faces on the bottom of the screen as they were introducing the teams in this moment, but what you're going to see is that really it's going to be the towards the bottom of the screen. It's going to be just a pitch back to Robinson, to the outside, get him in open space. It's a good idea. Not going to work out too well. Look, right when this play begins, so, okay, listen, I like the idea. Get a good player in open space, especially with that Georgia defensive line, get him away from that Georgia defensive line. The issue is that Georgia defensive line can move pretty quickly, so there's still plenty of guys around here to be able to run over and try to make a tackle on Brian Robinson. So again, what do you do in this spot? He could do what he did last time, just kind of lower the shoulder and be able to still pick up some yards, but instead he's going to cut back towards the inside and be able to pick up more yards than I think most halfbacks would have been able to pick up in that scenario. So again, very good play. What are you doing? That's kind of what you look at with running backs, right? How many yards are you picking up more than the average running back would have in that scenario? If you took just sort of a replacement level running back, that's a loss of a couple of yards probably. Instead, he turned it into a gain of a couple of yards. So those swings are really what matters, and that's where the value in the running back lies. We can now go over to something like this. We got to talk about his blocking, and quite frankly, his blocking isn't the best, which, you see him as a big guy. You think he'd be a pretty good blocker, but that's not always the way it works, and typically with running backs, blocking is less about how physically good you are at it and more just about how smart you are with it. It's usually more of just like a making the right reads thing than it is just being able to physically be able to do it, because let's be honest, even for a big running back, you're certainly going to be smaller than linebackers and smaller than defensive linemen. So typically it's less about size and more just about technique. The way this play works is, so his right guard is going to be in a his right tackle is going to be in a one-on-one block. So typically you want the halfback to kind of go towards the outside and block the edge rusher closer towards the inside of the play. Don't allow the edge rusher to get a straight speed rush. You call this a chip, where that's what he typically does. In fairness, it doesn't look like he was initially just chipping onto play altogether. It looked like he was just trying to help out and block regardless, be in blitz protection if that happened. However, right when this play begins, you just notice that he gets too far towards the inside there. That's not what you want to have happen if you're going to help out in that area. If you're not, just run a route or something, because you're not helping out regardless here. What you want to do is make sure you get to the outside and help your tackle out that way. This isn't really helping out your tackle. So again, I'm not in the room when these play calls or these practices happen. Maybe that's how Alabama wanted him to do this specific play. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. And as you see, this play just is not going to work out as well as you would have liked. There was the pressure there because he just went to the wrong side of that play. And again, This is not one play in isolation. This is something I noticed. You'd like to see him be a little bit better at that. It is coachable. And one thing I want to talk about is something like this so this is going to be a play where he is going to make the right read and everything. Pretty simple read. I mean, he's in blitz pickup and he's kind of just straight up just blocking the guy who I've circled on the field here. But as you see, I mean, he is going to do a good job of just being able to physically make that block the way you would want to. Again, no running back is going to look awesome blocking. It just doesn't really happen. Every time a running back is blocking, it's a mismatch, but you just want them to survive, and that's what Robinson can do when he's in position. So that's why I'm a little bit less concerned than maybe it would be about other guys who, even when they're in position, they get bodied. At least for him, like when he's in position, he's fine. So, and something to work on. But I mean, when you're, trying to make the team, like that's something that you have to do, is you have to be able to be good in all facets of the game. Let's go over to a play like this now. You see the gap that he's going to want to run through. So it's going to be, again, in between that defensive tackle and defensive end, or more specifically, in between kind of his center and right tackle, as the right guard's going to pull. So really, it'll be in between the right tackle and right guard, but the right guard's going to hopefully be out of position, out of the way by the time he's even over there. And look, right when this play begins, you see that at this point, you can definitely tell how big this window is. This should be a gain of some yards. And let's play my favorite game. I want you to play along at home. Think about how many yards you expect him to be able to pick up on this play. What's your guess? Just looking at right here, how many do you think he picks up? I think a logical guess might be like 3, right? Gets through that gap, falls forward, but eventually does get tackled. Watch how many he's going to pick up. As you see, he's going to end up picking up 17 yards on this play. Who had 17 yards as an answer there? Probably none of you. That'd be weird. That'd be an oddly specific number if one of you had exactly 17. But again, that's what you want to see a running back be able to do, right? Is be able to not just win, but what I always say, win by as much as possible. Get as many yards as humanly possible. How many yards are there? Do you get the yards that are there? Yes, he does that. Do you get more yards than the ones that are there? Yes, he does that. So that's the value in a Brian Robinson. So yeah, I mean, listen, for Brian Robinson, the only negative that you have with someone like him is the fact that, what position he plays. That's pretty good. Like I feel like it's a good sign that, hey, he's probably a pretty good player. So you have that. But again, I feel like Washington, maybe you could argue, are you really being competitive now? But they feel like they're competitive now, so that's why they're making this pick. Are they going to be competitive? I don't know. Well, remains to be seen. But again, it's an interesting selection. I think he'll play well there, though. I do think he'll be a good player. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.